Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly update. I am Nicholas Zabladell. It is a rainy day here in central Wisconsin, and I am just going to give you my take on what's going on in the world. You can take it or leave it. I know it's been a while since I've had a show, and I do apologize for that. I've been busy, but I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview of what's been going on in the world since the last time I've had a show. I know a lot of things has happened, but the most important things as of within the last week are John Brennan, who was the former head of, or who is the former head of the CIA. His security clearance has been revoked. Trump and his administration are still at odds with the mainstream media, and we had a primary election for this fall's midterm. So to just start out, John Brennan, like I said, his security clearance was revoked yesterday when Sarah Sanders had made the announcement during her press conference. And Trump and his administration have been drawing criticism ever since then. The New York Times ran an article yesterday, and it was titled ex-CIA Director John Brennan strikes back after Trump revokes his security clearance. And part of the article says, Mr. Trump's decision, announced on Wednesday by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the press secretary, came only a few weeks after Ms. Sanders warned that Mr. Trump was considering revoking the clearances of Mr. Brennan and others who he believed had politicized and inappropriately profited from their access to delicate information. It was the latest assault by a president who has routinely questioned the loyalties of national security officials and dismissed some of their findings, particularly the conclusion of Moscow intervening in the 2016 election as attacks against him. In an interview later in the day with the Wall Street Journal, Mr. Trump drew a direct connection between the investigation and the targeting of Mr. Brennan and others whose security clearances he had said were under review. I call it the rigged witch hunt, Mr. Trump said, and these people led it. So I think something had to be done, he added. Step by step, from the moment 10 days into his administration that he fired the acting Attorney General, Sally Yates, Mr. Trump had overseen the removal of his top national security officials who have defied him or worked at senior levels of the Russian investigation. This included James Comey, the former FBI director, Andrew McCabe, the former deputy director of the FBI, and Peter Strzok, the former FBI counterintelligence agent who helped oversee the Hillary Clinton email inquiry and the Russian investigation, and disparaged Mr. Trump in a series of inflammatory texts. Now, I get that it looks shady for President Trump to fire those people, and it very well could be politically motivated, but I do understand from what I've looked into so far that, and this is just me talking here, this isn't the article, that these people were just as politically motivated themselves, regarding Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe. Sally Yates, she was just the acting attorney general, so Trump could have easily just replaced her because, he had the right to do so. He wanted someone else in there. But the people who were just as politically motivated, like McCabe and Peter Strzok, these people, had issues with President Trump, so he felt it necessary for McCabe to be fired, and that's why the office of the Inspector General filed that report, and then Jeff Sessions ended up firing him. So between Brennan being a vocal critic for Trump and then, like I said, Strzok and McCabe, these three people had well, at least to me, they have it out for Trump. And I mean, Brennan, he has no right to have a security clearance. To me, that should be standard for everyone leaving an agency. Joseph Curl, he had wrote an article for the Daily Wire, and he essentially had said that, if an employee for Apple, whether it be they were fired or had left the job, they'd no longer have access to the technology that Apple has. So, why should Brennan have access to delicate information? And I totally agree with that. When you leave, government for whatever reason, you shouldn't have the perks of the office when you're not in, that position. And then MSNBC's Morning Joe had the AP's White House reporter, John Lemire, on, and I'm going to play you part of it, but he discusses his criticism with President Trump's revoking of the security clearance on John Brennan. So I'm going to play that here quick. If I can find it.
John Brennan, of course, has been among many former Obama-era national security officials to criticize President Trump. White House has signaled this might be coming and went through with it yesterday.
Right. A few weeks ago, Sarah Sanders read off a list of names suggesting that they were reviewing the security clearances of these individuals.
You said a few weeks ago. Was it July 26th?
It was right around then, yes. It suggested that this was a step they might take, an unprecedented step, that it was discussed yesterday at great length, that when, say, the George W. Bush and the Iraq War, there were many critics of that movement, and that administration did not move to strip security clearances of those who were doing so. And this is depriving, of course, the American government of these people's expertise. That these are people who have, like Brennan, of course, was near the center of the bin Laden raid, and keeping his clearance would allow this government to consult with him on those matters. Now, of course, they haven't been because he's been such a critic, but it feels like a punitive step, a step that's purely for punishment. And that is something we have not seen before from this president. And the timing, of course, is such that it's drawn such attention that it comes amid all of these other bad stories. It's been a very bad week for this White House, and this feels like they had something in their back pocket that they wanted to drop when the...
So John Lemire was essentially saying that Trump was only doing this to punish John Brennan, and that very well could be the case, but it should be a precedent that, like I said, whoever leaves the position that they were in shouldn't keep the perks of their job. So while it is unprecedented now, it should become precedent. And I know some people might get upset at me for saying this, but like presidents who leave office, they shouldn't be able to have Secret Service after they end their 2 terms. And John Brennan, what expertise exactly would he bring to the Trump administration? I don't even think that Brennan would be willing to come help the president, even if Trump had asked John Brennan. So there's that. I mean, he's been critical of President Trump at every turn. So he even went so far as to say that Trump's meeting with Putin it amounted to treason. So I don't think that Brennan would be one person that Trump would want to bring on, or Brennan would even be willing to bring or to join. But the Washington Post had posted an op-ed regarding this whole thing, and it was written by a guy named Greg Sargent. And he had went so far as to say that stripping Brennan's security clearance is just a way to hinder the Mueller investigation. That was one reason as to why, or the reason as to why Trump had done the revoking of the security clearance. And he says that the key is that it suggests that this move is all about striking a political blow against Robert Mueller's investigation. Sargent says, "Here's the thing. The revocation of his security clearance will have no practical impact on Brennan's ability to make public statements along the lines that Trump is objecting to such, or to, the revocation of his security clearance will have no practical impact on Brennan's ability to make public statements along the lines that Trump is objecting to on such disingenuous grounds. It will not constrain Brennan from from publicly talking about the Russia inquiry, his views of Trump's conduct, and then in parentheses, he says, Brennan has repeatedly said Trump will eventually be exposed in some fashion or anything else. As national security lawyer Bradley Moss notes in this useful explainer, which is another article, having security clearance is merely means being eligible for access to national security secrets. The decision to actually grant the access is made by a particular agency. Security clearance is merely the precondition for that to happen. Moss told me on Wednesday that it is highly unlikely Brennan has been actually availing himself of such information since leaving office, since it's highly unlikely that the CIA would be granting this access. Brennan's eligibility is a holdover, but that doesn't mean he has been getting any information since leaving as a result of that eligibility. Moss noted it is likely all the information that Brennan knows and that has been informing his public statements was gleaned while he was still the CIA chief. Brennan still possesses that knowledge, meaning nothing changes in terms of what he can now say or not say. This will have zero practical impact on what Brennan does from here on out, Moss told me. It will have no impact on his ability to continue doing media appearances. Moss added that Brennan will still face the same constraints against divulging whatever classified info he knows as he did before, so that aspect doesn't change either. So, to me, this op-ed makes no sense. Sargent says that Trump thinks Mueller could use Brennan for information regarding the Trump-Russia collusion. And then he says Brennan won't have access to the information regarding the information, but he does know that info. So Brennan, he could tell Mueller that he knows things but doesn't have access to the things that he knows. So there's also, if he were to have that security clearance, he would have there's no guarantee that he would have that, or he would be able to get that information. So what I would also want to ask is that, does Mueller already have information from John Brennan? I mean, Brennan has had his security clearance since Trump has taken office, and the investigation by Robert Mueller has been going on for over a year now. So that makes little to no sense that this would have any effect on the Mueller investigation, or is because of the Mueller investigation. But now, moving on from John Brennan's security clearance issues, we have Trump, and he is duking it out with the press. And honestly, I think that the group that has most to lose in it is American citizens. And to start off with it, I just want to show you guys Jim Acosta's back and forth with Sarah Sanders. That was a couple of weeks ago.
Jim?
I just wanted to follow up on Sarah's question from NPR. She asked you about Ivanka Trump's statement that the press is not the enemy of the people. And she asked you whether or not the press is the enemy of the people. You read off a laundry list of your concerns about the press and things that you feel like are misreported, but you did not say that the press is not the enemy of the people. And I think it would be a good thing if you were to say right here at this briefing that the press, the people who are gathered in this room right now, doing their jobs every day, asking questions of officials like the ones you brought forward earlier, are not the enemy of the people. I think we deserve that.
I think the president has made his position known. I also think it's ironic.
Would you mind telling us,
I'm
Sarah,
trying to answer your
okay,
question.
well,
I politely waited, and I even called on you despite the fact that you interrupted me while calling on your colleague.
well, you
I said it's
attacked our
ironic.
organization, which is why I interrupted.
I'm trying.
But if you finish, if you would not mind letting me have a follow-up, that would be fine. But
It's ironic, Jim, that not only you and the media attack the president for his rhetoric when they frequently lower the level of conversation in this country. Repeatedly, the media resorts to personal attacks without any content other than to incite anger. The media has attacked me personally on a number of occasions, including your own network, said I should be harassed as a life sentence, that I should be choked. ICE officials are not welcomed in their place of worship, and personal information is shared on the internet. When I was hosted by the Correspondents Association, of which almost all of you are members of, you brought a comedian up to attack my appearance and call me a traitor to my own gender. In fact, as I know, as far as I know, I'm the first press secretary in the history of the United States that's required Secret Service protection. The media continues to ratchet up the verbal assault against the president and everyone in this administration, and certainly we have a role to play, but the media has a role to play for the discourse in this country as well.
And sir, if you don't mind, if I may follow up, excuse me, you did not say in the course of those remarks that you just made that the press is not the enemy of the people. Are we to take it from what you just said? We all get put through the ringer. We all get put in the meat grinder in this town, and you're no exception. And I'm sorry that that happened to you. I wish that had not happened. But for the sake of this room, the people who are in this room, this democracy, this country, all the people around the world are watching what you're saying, Sarah, and the White House for the United States of America, the President of the United States should not refer to us as the enemy of the people. His own daughter acknowledges that, and all I'm asking you to do, Sarah, is to acknowledge that right now and right here.
I appreciate your passion. I share it. I've addressed this question. I've addressed my personal feelings. I'm here to speak on behalf of the president. He's made his comments clear.
Now, Sarah does make her points at times, but the correspondence dinner where her appearance was degraded, it was bad, yes, but it wasn't journalism or journalists themselves doing it, and it's not like it was news. Jim Acosta, however, wanted Sarah Sanders to give her opinion on Trump's comment of the press being the enemy of the people, and she actually wasn't having any of it. The press secretary's job is to fill the press in on what's going on with the administration, not provide their personal opinions on what is going on. He wanted to create a rift between the American people and the president, and he wanted to make it seem like the press was sitting on the people's side. Now, after this whole thing, there are certain media places providing op-eds saying that they, want a free press and all sorts of stuff like that. In fact, just before I started recording, I had seen, there are some places like 300 different news outlets, I guess is the best way to put it. They're saying that, they want, or, they're criticizing Trump's comments for his attacks on the media. But townhall.com, one of their writers, Matt Vespa, wrote a piece about a former producer from CNN having issues with Jim Acosta's virtue signaling instead of reporting the news. And the press, including Jim Acosta, tried to pin the Capitol Gazette shooting in Maryland on President Trump. And Vespa writes in his article, says, Leah covered this earlier this afternoon. Leah, another townhall.com reporter or writer. But CNN's Jim Acosta once again embarrassed himself at a White House event where we celebrated the 6-month anniversary of the tax reform package becoming law, a law that has formed the foundation for our rapid economic growth. As he left the podium, Acosta shouted if the president would, quote-unquote, Stop calling the press the enemy of the people. Acosta quite nakedly tried to pin the blame of the tragic shooting at the Capitol Gazette in Annapolis, Maryland, which left 5 people dead. It was not Trump's fault. The shooter, 38-year-old Jared Ramos, used a shotgun to commit the attack, and his grievance with the publication dated back to 2011-2012. The left tried to blame the Trump White House. It blew up in their faces. Sorry, but this is what gives credence to the fake news criticism, which, by the way, originated with Hillary Clinton, not Trump. Even a former CNN producer, Steve Krakauer, torched Acosta for his behavior, saying that what he did captured why many are losing trust in the media. It also reinforces the notion that the elite media is biased. They're allies of the Democratic Party, and they're unabashedly anti-Trump. I know, preaching to the choir here. On Twitter, Krakauer said, "On a day journalists could honor the memory of fellow reporters tragically killed due to a deranged person with a vendetta going back years, Acosta tried to shift the blame to Trump, thus validating many Americans' feelings about the Acela media that existed long before Trump. It's truly an embarrassment on multiple levels," he added. With such antics, the man in front of Acosta who shushed him has it right. Now, that's the rest of the article. But Jim Acosta has been the poster child of the right's campaign against quote-unquote fake news. And in my opinion, very rightly so. But I do also take concern with someone like Sean Hannity, who believes he is at the helm of saving America. Politico had run an article following Trump's summit with Vladimir Putin, and Trump had a friend in Sean Hannity, and the article states that after Trump had his press conference with Putin, he had an interview with Sean Hannity, and at the end of towards the end of the interview, I'm starting the article now. "You were very strong at the end of that press conference," Hannity told Trump as he conducted the first interview following the afternoon press conference, or news conference. Moments earlier, the president had told reporters he accepted Putin's denials about meddling in the 2016 election, even though his director of national intelligence, Dan Coats, said otherwise. Though some right-wing hosts offered their own defenses of the president, the Hannity-Trump interview stood out as a singular safe space for the president on cable news, underscoring the significance of Hannity's platform for the maintenance of the Trump brand. The relationship is mutually beneficial. Monday night's interview drew about 4 million views, squashing the cable news competition, and in turn providing the president with the megaphone that broadcasts directly to his political base. Now, later in the piece, it says, Hannity's coziness with the president, as well as that of other Fox News hosts with Trump, has at times discomforted the executives trying to steer the network in the post-Roger Ailes era. The channel is now led by CEO Suzanne Scott, and Fox News executives have at times tried to push its hosts to distance themselves from the president, according to people familiar with their deliberations. On at least one occasion, executives asked a group of Fox personalities who had been invited to dine at the White House to decline the invitation, hoping to fend off the appearance that the network had inched too close to the White House. So, while Sean Hannity, this is me, the article is, I just finished it. While Sean Hannity has never claimed to be an objective reporter, people do take him as, a news source. And to me, that's concerning to say the least. Him interviewing Trump following the summit, like the article had said, was a platform for Trump to get his message out and try and spin the press conference to say that, it wasn't as bad with Putin and, try to, I guess, play damage control. Now, I do believe that the meeting that Trump had with Putin it could have gone a lot better. It was very poor, in my opinion, but I don't think it was what John Brennan had said to amount to treason. Just to wrap it up today, I'm going to just provide you guys with what I think about the primaries that had happened this Tuesday and what it means for the upcoming midterms this fall. So, obviously, there was the primary for the Democratic candidate for the Wisconsin governor, the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate, and then various statewide positions throughout the state of Wisconsin. Many people believe that, this will be the start of the blue wave for the Democrats this fall. And, Republicans are trying to say, that they're still winning, so they have nothing to worry about. But I do find it really concerning that the Ohio primary, or the Ohio election that they had, the special election that they had just recently, it was supposed to be a Republican stronghold, and the Republican candidate, I don't remember the exact details of that election, they had won by just a narrow margin, whereas Trump had won in 2016 by like plus 15 points, I think, or something like that. And now, Democrats are saying that this will be a massive, blue wave for for their congressional candidates this fall. And while, yes, it is very concerning for Republicans this fall because, they're not winning as much as they should, it is still a win for the Republicans. So I guess it's something that, I guess it's concerning, yes, but it's not, end of the world scenario for them. And I know I had talked with a handful of people about the Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate in Wisconsin here. And, they had preferred Kevin Nicholson, but, we've got to work with Leah Vukmir. And, I mean, she does have a conservative track record. She did vote for Act 10, which was, one of the big platforms that Scott Walker had run on in his recall election and then his re-election 4 years ago. So obviously Leah Vukmir has that, but it's not, she wasn't the first choice for some of the people I had talked to, but obviously since she had won the primary, people had spoken, and I'm not going to sit here and, hypothesize on if there were Democrats, voting in the primary here to try and, flood the primary to influence, a poor candidate, because, I mean, I have no information on that, whatsoever. But the the U.S. Senate race for the state of Wisconsin is going to shape up to be one of I'd say it'll be a knockdown, drag-out fight, considering how Tammy Baldwin, she's by many on the left deemed to be a champion for, women's rights and, the LGBT movement and all that sort of stuff. But there's definitely criticisms there where she, flat out, let, veterans, the VA scandal, that's on her. People, there were whistleblowers and, nothing was done. So, I'm not going to go into all the details because I don't have it right here in front of me, but, that's definitely one thing she's going to have to contend with. And then, Leah Vukmir, like I said, she does have the conservative brand to her, but, she's going around saying that she's a champion of conservatism, where, yes, she has voted for conservative things, but she's not the she's not the champion of the conservative movement. And obviously, when it comes to the general election, you're going to have to win the moderates and independents over, which, you know, obviously we're day 2 after the primary. So, you know, I'm sure they're working on their strategies now and are going to be coming out with it very soon on how they're going to approach winning the independents over. I mean, obviously, issues that matter to Wisconsin, like, you know, the Foxconn deal, that's, you know, more of the governor's issue, but, you know, healthcare, jobs, you know, that sort of thing. Obviously, with 2 women as our Senate candidates, you know, women's rights is going to be a major issue. So it's going to come down to who is going to appeal more to, like I said, independents, because I think that both sides are going to be able to shore up their base. I mean, I think that Vukmir is going to be able to ride the Trump brand, and while I have my concerns with that, you know, it has, you know, its benefits. I mean, for sure, you know, depending on how unhinged President Trump gets, you know, you'll want to either, you know, get close to him and want an endorsement, or try and distance yourself from him. And, you know, depending on the district, you know, for the representative or the state that you live in, you know, it could be a good or a bad thing to you know, work with him. But regarding the governor's race, we have Tony Evers, who was, oh geez, I don't even remember what he does, or, you know, his position was. He worked for the state, and I'm gonna feel stupid, I'm looking it up right now. He obviously was a man who was in the okay, so he's the superintendent of the Department of Public Instruction for the state of Wisconsin. So, you know, he's got statewide recognition, and, you know, he's said, you know, multiple times that he wants to, you know, axe the Foxconn deal, which, I mean, you know, that's a very polarizing issue, especially down in, you know, the Kenosha area, because, you know, it brings jobs to the area, but then again, you know, people have said that that company is very shady, I guess is the best way to put it. But, you know, it's Governor Walker is definitely touting that, you know, as a major issue to, you know, it's a job creator, you know, between the corporation itself and, you know, just the need of infrastructure and construction and all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, with 2 terms under his belt and winning, you know, the recall election, I mean, Scott Walker, he's got a lot of momentum. But, you know, with particularly here in the state, there was the whole issue over road funding between him and Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. You know, those 2 were at odds, even though they're in the same party. I mean, that issue has kind of fallen off recently, but, you know, for the longest time, because the budget for the state of Wisconsin, you know, was going to come to a screeching halt because, you know, the assembly couldn't come to a resolution on funding for roads, and Governor Walker, you know, like I said, he had major issues with increasing spending, whereas Robin wanted to increase spending for, you know, the budget shortfalls that the DOT had. So it'll be quite an interesting governor's race also. I mean, I'm not going to make predictions, obviously. So it's gonna come down to, you know, if Tony Evers can, you know, I guess really point out Scott Walker's, you know, shortfalls, whether it be, like I said, the road funding. I mean, you know, if he can, you know, make the claim that Act 10 hasn't been good for Wisconsin. And I mean, there are many people that had supported Scott Walker, you know, even through the protests and, you know, with the recall election, you know, and then once again, winning the second term after the recall. So, you know, Scott Walker has, you know, the momentum coming in as the incumbent, obviously. It's just, you know, is Tony Evers going to capitalize on that? But I guess I've had enough rambling. So on that note, that's all I've got for today. So just a friendly reminder to like the weekly update on Facebook and follow me on my Twitter at SaintNickZ7. I want you all to know that through vigilance and strength, we create peace. And as St. Paul writes to the Corinthians, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Peace.